We can take questions as we go along anyway, but one question is here, and I just want to make sure I've got the question correct. If consciousness is being expressed through the body and the mind and makes us conscious, then what happens on death when that consciousness leaves the body? Would that be accurate?
Yes, so yes, yeah.
That,
It is, for us to experience consciousness, we have to have body and mind.
Okay.
Is that right?
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So to experience consciousness, that is awareness of everything,
yeah.
we require body and mind to do it.
Yeah, so
okay.
Without body and mind,
all right.
Nothing.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I would reduce that a little bit. So I would reduce that and eliminate one of those components, namely the body, because the body, if it was conscious, then it would be on so-called death, then it's just a body. Body, and we often confuse these two things, body and mind, when we say that, we often confuse brain and mind, I should say. But you see, that would be a modern or a postmodern understanding from a materialist point of view, with an axiom that says everything has to be physical. Everything has to be reduced to atoms, to particles. And that is a way of thinking which we would completely refute. In fact, that approach was refuted in the Brahma Sutras already. So we have to see what is sentient and what is insentient. And we can use the example of a spider and a web. You can poke a web with a stick, it'll bounce. Insentient stick requires a sentient being to use it, to poke it. Poking an insentient thing, such as a web. But that means that some agent has to be there doing it. And no matter how much we talk to the web, or coax the web, or think that the web is independently bouncing, that would not be the truth. The truth is that a spider is required not only to produce the web, but also to use it to catch insects, flies, food, and so on. Carefully weaves it, and it can run about in its web. So there's a clarification. There's a subject, an object, there's a sentient, there's an insentient. And when we talk about viveka, the application of discernment, we surely have to clearly identify the body as insentient, but filled with some sentiency. And then when we see a corpse, so-called death, we can poke the corpse, it won't react. If it does, you'll get a fright. But it's just there, it's made from material which is in the process of decay, unless we treat it in a special way. Everything that is material will decay. Everything that is an aggregate will disperse itself into decay. That's the nature of it. So all the eternal question would be is, what is that sentient entity, the agency that gives this body life? So much for the body. The brain is part of that. The brain is an organic thing made from the same food as every other muscle, fiber, and cell of the body. The genius of the body is there must be some sentient entity which is making a sorting process, a manufacturing and sorting process, assimilating nutrients, arranging for the dispatch of those things not required, a kind of city. And the curious thing is that is compared to a city. In the Katha Upanishad does it, the Bhagavad Gita also does it, 9-gated city or 11-gated city. This 11-gated city is there, an unusual way of viewing the body. Because our identification with the body is what we call egoism. It's not just a physical thing, it's the understanding that there is a conscious thing moving, breathing with a personality. And then we can then come to what is then mind. So according to the yogic understanding, mind is a very subtle version of the body. Mind is subtle matter. Matter is gross mind. All this is described beautifully in the precursor, the preamble, if you will, to Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga. So we make these distinctions. The reason why we make these distinctions is to practice familiarity with these distinctions. And when we've made this familiarity with these distinctions, we can then ask the question and experience the answer. Please tell me, what is this sentient thing? What is this conscious entity that fills the body, that sits in the body? And the Kathopanishad answers the question. It tells us about an 11-gated city, but it is occupied within it, within this city, this whole arrangement, with motorways and highways and waste disposal, waste collection and absorption and giving the economy, running the economy of the city, everything running like a city. The city itself cannot do it. No more than the city of Dublin can do its own running. There has to be a civic office, an administration office. What is the administrator within the human body? What is the one that arranges everything, digests the food nicely, that converts pure material into energy? You put a red tomato in the mouth, it comes out as black hair somewhere, or white hair, depending. Different variations of different disbursements, a converted thing that gives us what we call the body. And we can re-register it in our language. We can say earth car, if you like. You know my descriptions of it. Kathopanishad says it's an 11-gated city belonging to what? Belonging to one whose consciousness is unflickering. Unborn, ajna, whose consciousness is unflickering. And when we think of something flickering, we think of a flame, a candle flame. Candle flame, you can't avoid flickering. So many forces are there, a little breeze, a little wind. You walk in, you create a current of air, undetected. It arrives at the flame and produces some kind of wavering, and it's consuming all the time. If it's a candle, a wax candle, it's consuming the wax. If it's an oil lamp, it's consuming the oil. Some activity is going on. But then the consciousness behind the body, can we also apply it in different and other ways to see why would we make this error? Why would we make this mistake? Why would we not clearly delineate these things? Why should we not make the mistake when it comes to putting your socks on, or or driving in a car? And so this is the comparison. The old style of saying car is chariot. And a chariot is a graphic visual picture because a chariot is driven by horses. Can we make a comparison with the body? We can. We can see that it is something like a chariot, and the horses are compared to the senses moving toward the outside. And the chariot will be split into 5 different directions if we don't have some reins. The reins are the intellect, or the reins are the mind, I should say, the thing that is controlling it. And the intellect is the chariot driver, but the conscious owner, the one that is directing the whole business, the driver essentially, will be Krishna in the case of the Bhagavad Gita, the case of the example. And that same Krishna will be this owner or this emperor, this king within the city that is ruling it, without which the body is not moving. Without the civic authorities running things, city comes to a standstill. No programs for 2025, no arrangements for foreign visitors, no flags flying, no rubbish collection. Imagine. So what is that administering factor which is there within the body? It is one that is not born, because everything that is born dies. And its consciousness is unflickering. Now, the nature of the body and the mind, or all mental activities, is flickering, change, movement. And for us to register movement, we have to have two things. First of all, movement is registered by a non-moving thing and is registered within time. If you were to interview a corpse and say, "What is the time?" it won't answer you. Time is gone for it. Space is also gone from it. Time and space belong to this environment in which there is a body and other bodies, and a space that occupies it, and various events around it, and arrangements and relationships, and all of that comes under a waking state. So now, when you talk of consciousness, you're not just talking of the waking consciousness, because somehow that ends. A kind of drifting thing going, where the I, that is a John or a this or that, melts into a kind of amorphous state where random events can occur. And there was one ego in John's world, but in John's dream world, John disappears and there can be multiple personalities there. So the same ego is distributed in multiple ways everywhere. There's only one dreamer, but many, many objects within it. But you know, these objects are not separate from the dreamer. Even in the dream, you have this understanding. So, where was the visa application you made to cross the border into a realm which says, "I'm a king with a queen and a palace and live for 1,000 years"? Because time is there. Some kind of space is there. It's a different kind of space. It's a mental space which is there. So you can say time is there. In our waking world, time and space is there. Dream world, let's say maybe only time is there. Time and space are both gone when you glide across the border somehow, and there is just a deep sleep. And according to the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, the mind stuff, see, it's stuff, not sentient yet, just stuff. Stuff made from energy, and we know that energy really comes out in certain conditions as matter. And we have that famous equation that actually energy is equivalent to matter, mass, that 1 gram of any mass has an energy equivalent, if released, of blowing up a whole campus or a city or a village. So we are living in this atomic energy where this potency can be used against humanity. And in nature, it's used without humanity in consideration at all. If you study astronomy, you see this atomic energy is being used everywhere in quasars and supernova and what have you. So now we're dealing with an insentient body that is given sentiency by this consciousness, or this entity whose consciousness is unflickering, it doesn't change, not subject to time and space. And when we talk of a waking state, and when we talk of a dream state and a dream sleep state, there is a conscious entity, a witness that is observing it all, able to recall, I did this yesterday, I had this dream, this was the content, and I slept peacefully. They were kind of blank. Time and space was gone. And I was blissful, because there was no second to argue with. I didn't have any problems. There were no secondary problems. There was only one entity there. Not even numerology can describe it. So something is there. Still an object is there though. Peace is there. And I observed it. So using the old example, standing on the station platform, the station master blows the whistle, and the first train comes. It's full, let's say, or it's a goods train. It comes and it goes. Goods are offloaded. New goods are put, it goes. Clearly the station master didn't come with the train and didn't go with it. I'm just watching it. I'm not the train. I'm not this waking state. Second train comes along full of passengers. All kinds of passengers dressed up. Let's make it adventurous in period costume. They may be attending the annual Bloom Festival or something. All dressed up in hats and gloves and so on and so forth. A fantasy world. And I observe it nicely. People get off, people get on. I blow the whistle, train is gone. The dream state is gone. Clearly, I didn't come with it. I'm not going to go with it. And then the next train comes along. Oh, it's empty. Should I fill it with anything? No, thank you. So that scene is coming to us. And I blow the whistle, and the train goes off. 3 trains came, 3 trains went. I never came, I never went. My consciousness unflickering. I'm the eternal witness of trains. Only 3 trains are there. Only 3 varieties are there. But I'm clearly none of them. For me to register anything, I have to be the only conscious thing which is there, lending my consciousness to these 3. Then you ask, is there a separate activating force that brings train 1, train 2, train 3? No. There can only be this one consciousness, since I have to separate the insentient from the sentient, the object from the subject, the experience from the experiencer. Like watching a film. I can't say I'm the screen. I can't say I'm the characters on the screen. I can't say I'm the role of the film. I'm sitting in the audience, and therefore the witness is also described as the enjoyer. You see, if you have an art gallery or you attend an art museum and you see great works of art, maybe modern art, and there's a special exhibition, the artist himself is there. Then as a person enjoying all of this, who's the anxious person? The artist or the one that's enjoying the art? The artist is wondering, will anybody buy my paintings? What will they think of it? I did this in a hurry. I made a mistake. I splashed some paint on a canvas. It looked good. I put it in an art gallery. And by reputation, it's sold for millions. So who is the most disturbed? Is it the artist involved in his art gallery, in his art special exhibition, or is it the one that's observing and enjoying the art? So the witness is also the enjoyer. You take another scenario, a stage play. I'm in the audience watching it. Now, in a waking state, I'm still a witness. Supposing I participate in the drama, supposing I'm on the stage, supposing I'm Irving, the great Shakespearean actor, playing the part of Hamlet, and I then say my lines and so on, and there are tragedies and what have you. I don't go in a state of depression back to where I live. The play was the play. When it's over, the makeup comes off, the costumes come off, I put on my civilian clothes, I go home, I have some supper. I don't go home to a wife and say, oh, mine wench, please supply my victuals for my repast, Shakespearean language. No, you're Irving. And during the playing Hamlet, you always had the consciousness of, I am Irving. I'm the Shakespearean actor. Even if you involve yourself fully in the part, there's still the understanding, I'm the actor playing the part. So I'm the actor playing the part. We are all actors playing our parts. Shakespeare was completely correct. All the world's a stage, we are but players. But how is it that we don't feel it? We identified so much with the part from birth onwards, and we are told this is us. We are named, we are identified with a certain family, a certain ancestry, a certain country, a certain nationalism, a certain culture. And every one of these endorses more and more and more, I am this is my name. Instead of saying, you see, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad gives a funny scenario. It says, you see, the Lord of all creatures looked around and found nobody, then became lonely. And it says, I am he, I am that one, that's fine. Therefore, when we are asked, who is that at the door? We say, I am he, I am she, I am the person. And from that loneliness, creation came. A story like that. So that's a very significant different way of thinking, as opposed to an entity separate from a creation that made a creation. Still is a duality, still is a division into sentient and insentient. But where did everything come from? What made everything move, heads nodding and like puppets and so on? Where is it coming from? A puppet handler. Something must be sentient, and something must be conscious. And when we say I'm conscious in an objective way, we confuse our terminology, because awareness, self-awareness, awareness of objects and so on, yes, it comes because there is a sentient entity, which is consciousness itself, that manifests through the instrumentation of body and mind. Quite correct. But the body and mind is not sentient until it's used as an instrument. So it's like you poke a stick from behind a wall and somebody thinks the stick is moving. It has its own consciousness. No, there's a mover behind it waving the stick, maybe peeping through a one-way mirror, or and seeing what is your reaction, having a bit of fun like that. A kind of remote control business. Supposing I walk in here and unsuspectingly an engineer has put a mechanism under my chair. So as I sit, it activates by remote control, nowadays through electronics, and a robot comes, AI, a robot comes and lifts up its robot arms and serves me a nice cup of tea. Milk is poured, a little honey is put in, and the hand offers it to me. I won't for a moment, initially anyway, in this age I might, suspect that I activated by sitting on the chair. And we have robots everywhere. In Mars, there are robots independently moving. Supposing the people of the 19th century were maybe correct and suspected, there are little creatures on Mars moving around, or maybe on the moon or something. And seeing this creature, not suspecting there's a remote control from the earth. So the body is moving, in a sense, by remote control, pure consciousness. The consciousness is unflickering, it's not moving, it's not subject to time and space. If it were, you would require another witness to observe it. So you somehow have to draw the line somewhere and say, there's a point where that being is unborn. Unborn means it doesn't live in a conventional sense of way within time and space, and it doesn't die. It never dies. Do you believe in reincarnation? No. I don't believe in this incarnation of time and change and so on. And I myself never incarnate or reincarnate. I was never born. I never die. I am there. I'm consistent and constant. I am pure consciousness itself. So objective consciousness, when people say consciousness is the hard problem, there's a common phrase like that now from an Australian philosopher. He puts this phrase out: consciousness is a hard problem, because they're thinking consciousness is there in an atomic sense in the brain somewhere. And if it's not in the brain, where is it? Can we put it in a jar and test? Is it alkaline? Is it acid? Can we look for it in the brain? Where is it located? Where is consciousness located in our neurology? And you can't find it. And even if you look at the neurology, you'll see there's a compensation that nature has. In other words, the consciousness through this nature operating in this way. And not only that, but we also say manifesting from it. 3 trains come and go. Where are they coming from? It's not just a witness, the consciousness itself. And therefore, that has to be the foundation. That has to be the very source. Like you see a tree. You don't know anything about biology. and you're a child, you never were told it. How is it that that tree stands on the ground? If I push it, it never moves. Then somebody says, no, there's a root. It goes deep down. Unless you shake the root, the tree will stand. So we have a root. Is another analogy used, not only in the cultivation and Bhagavad Gita as well. These two texts are very closely associated. We have that image of an ashwatha tree. And the beauty about the description is, it is vriksha, it is the thing that can be cut down. So there is this wonderful tree with branches, roots above and branches below. In other words, the source is a transcendent source. We put it like that. It's kind of upside down. And the leaves are the Vedas and the branch and so on and so forth. We can put the whole of our experience of the entire universe and think of it as a tree which does not operate or move unless it has a root. So we call this root Brahman. We also call it consciousness itself. We also call it existence itself. And when we discover it, we come close, a step beyond our experience in a dreamless sleep where there's bliss because duality has gone away. Our problem is duality. But can we remove duality in a stroke? No. So how do we approach it and come to a non-dual realization? Well, see, Shankaracharya was the advocate and the proponent and the propagator of the Advaita system, rescuing the ancient Vedic religion, if you will, which had been pretty much decimated. Buddhism, living for 1,000 years, had gone into decay and would not have been able to withstand the onslaught of military invasion from Islam. So it stood there, and there had to be a reformer. Adi Shankaracharya was this reformer, giving us profound teachings even from the age of 16. A great organizer. Now Swami Vivekananda gives a little bit of a commentary, saying, unfortunately, one problem is he was all in the intellect. And we required the heart of the Buddha as well, so that comment has to be there. But you see, bringing Advaita out means this non-duality, put it the other way, this one consciousness. That really is the final conclusion of all our spiritual investigation and all our mystical experience. This division goes away and culminates in oneness. Now recently I attended some interfaith things, and standard questions arise. See, how can religions get on with it together? Well, never mind about that. How can humanity get on together? Well, the answer is quite clearly oneness. The only thing is, what approach will we have to assert this oneness? Because just saying oneness is just a theory. It's just theoretical. It's just wordplay. Do we really experience this oneness? And really, only this non-dualistic system will assert this oneness. There are clues, because we don't have divisions in matter at its foundation. There's only one matter, one energy, and it can never come from anywhere, it can never be created, and therefore never destroyed. It is always there. But the modern cosmological models will make it come from somewhere. You can't just have it all the time. There must be a time when it's not there and it has to be created. Now you'll see the language that is being used is exactly the language of dualistic religion and comes up with philosophical problems. There's a creator creating the universe. Where's the second-hand shop he went to get the materials? And who made that? And who made that? And so it goes on ad infinitum. So it's a convenient image, no doubt. But it has to be refined a little bit more with a little bit better metaphysics. And eventually we have to come to this analogy. A spider weaves a web from itself. It doesn't require a Mrs. Spider to do it. From itself it does it. The web comes from itself. And the spider is a sentient entity. You poke a stick at the web, it bounces. Poke a stick toward the spider, it runs. Depending on the size of the spider, sometimes it runs toward you, of course. In Zimbabwe, we have the rain spider that runs toward you. It's quite harmless, but it knows how to frighten people. It's a moving thing. Its web is insentient. We don't require nature to have an explanation for creating itself. That makes it then conscious. It's a reflected consciousness, without which, without the consciousness itself, it's not moving. Same thing with the microcosm of the human entity. You are a microcosm in this Vedic understanding of the bigger macrocosm. Why not? You can apply special relativity in a general way and make it general relativity. Einstein did it. It's applied to everything. Newton did it. If we find one apple falling, then maybe the whole universe is involved in falling, calling it gravity. So we have to extrapolate our experience and not diverse ourselves from nature and say it applies everywhere. But you see, be careful when we say ourselves. What we're doing is we're saying we're part of nature. And this would be true in the sense that body and mind is certainly a part of what we call nature. But nature cannot create itself. Even in the atheistic system of Sankhya, there has to be an activating principle so that Prakriti, the machine of it, can move. Nature can move. But where does you go a step further, where does this nature come from? This nature comes from that unmoving consciousness, appearing like a conscious moving entity. And this appearance, we have this number of names for it. The operational causation of it, we have a name for it. And when we translate it, it means it's an appearance. We have any examples, yes? Vedanta produces 3 convincing examples of it, of appearance. Now we have our own examples, okay? So people come here and in public places and they appear well groomed. I don't think it's like that when they get up in the morning. So we're very familiar with appearance. Things are not exactly as they seem. And we can exacerbate that in our behavior by taking on what Patanjali is calling, translated as verbal delusion, means somebody says something and we jump to a conclusion. It's a wrong conclusion. I hear voices in the kitchen. They're talking. They're getting louder. They must be talking against me. No, they're talking about the weather and the storm. Something like that, you see? So our imagination fills in the gaps, normally erroneously. We have a habit of doing that. Part of it is to do with the mechanism of our neurology, yes. Any psychologist will tell you, you look at a pattern, famous patterns are there, and you jump to a conclusion because and they are registering it to the brain. The brain has to do something. No, that which is behind the brain does it. Otherwise, we would have to be consistent with our argument and say, the light bulb brings us light. No, the light bulb being there, with no energy within it, just sitting there, made from glass and made from a fine filament. And when the current behind it gets switched on and connected to it, provided the filament is intact, light is displayed. Anybody who doesn't know this electrical system may attribute the whole thing to the light bulb. And then when the light bulb bursts, because all things are impermanent, including light bulbs, when that light bulb bursts, we don't go and have a funeral. Go and bury the light bulb somewhere. What a pity. Have a big service. Yes. You have a space at the church for a service. What happened? Poor Mr. Lightbulb was deceased last night. We had to get a newborn one. and put it in its place. And when we know it won't reincarnate, it never did. So that's the end of it. So a light bulb is only active when there's electrical current behind it. And so in that analogy, we can see that if we register everything to the instrument, we can see a correlation between the electrical current and the light bulb. But any sensible person would say these are two different things, and one has to be connected to the other. And the other can be found everywhere because it's part of the electromagnetic wave system. And we have other waves within too, gamma waves, photons, all kinds of things are there. Different kinds of waves are there within that one field. So we have the useful analogy involving the three evolutionary forces of going out in the twilight where you cannot see properly. Something is coiled up in the corner and you say, there's a snake, and you can either run away or attack it or stand there mesmerized. But we have a problem, what to do about the snake. Our memory says and our botanical lessons tell us that snakes are dangerous, they can bite, and one bite could be fatal. Now there's our fourth option. Three options there. We can attack it, confront it, we can run away from it, we can stand mesmerized and do nothing. But the fourth option is there. We can apply some wisdom to it. Some investigative capacity is there within us. And we want to see, is it a snake? Is it real? Is the body itself self-activated? Is nature doing its own thing? We don't have to look anywhere beyond nature because nature is doing it all. This is a very common scientific axiomatic position based on materialism that arose during maybe the 17th century, 16th, 17th centuries, 17th century onwards. Descartes, we can blame for, but he's not totally to blame. 30 Years' War was also to blame, and so on. Various factors in Europe was to blame for a current materialistic reductionist point of view. Everything must be down to atoms. Clearly we know through modern science itself it cannot be so, because things are not reduced to atoms. Things are reduced to the quantum world, and they're not fixed. And there's no solution to what we call a measurement problem behind it. In other words, at the fundamental level in physics, we're running on uncertainty. You wouldn't apply a plan in your life based on uncertainty. You'd plan it based on determinism. I do this, I want to get that. So it's all a kind of trick without which we can't talk about it, we can't move, we can't do anything in the waking world. But let's not call it the real world. Let's call it the waking world. So very often I make fun to make a point. Whatever statement you say, I'll ask you to please add in the waking world. Then you may get it. I came on the bus in the waking world. Okay, all right. I'm going home in the waking world? Yes. And then what will you do? I'll sleep. No, you'll go into the dream world. And after that, maybe you'll go into the amorphous world of no time, no space, just deep sleep. And after that, you'll enter back into the waking world. And you didn't have to have a visa for it. And in the waking world, you can play football, no doubt, until maybe you get an injury. Then you have to have an operation or something on the knee. You used to be able to bend the knee and sit there for meditation. Now the prayer stool has to come back. So, all right, yeah, in the waking world, because in the dream world, you can run around and play football with two legs. How did the leg reincarnate in the dream world? How was it added? Did you enter the dream world and order parts from the waking world? Please come across. Let me play some football. No. But the dream world is as real as the waking world. Surely. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a real experience of it. When you recall it, oh, it was only a dream. It's only evaluated from the waking world, which also comes and goes, is also subject to change, is also relative to the capacity for my instrumentation to register it and interpret it. We're wrongly interpreting. That's the problem. So every position is really an interpretation. Even in science, every theory is an interpretation based on some axioms. If the axiom falls, the whole theory falls also. So this is our situation. We go out in the twilight, we superimpose a snake on what? On a rope coiled up. And with the light of knowledge and wisdom, we're able to explore it properly and see it in its correct dimension. And we say, oh, it was a rope coiled up. There's no need to run, no need to attack it, and there's no need to stand not knowing what to do about it. Now, you see, these three gunas, evolutionary forces, had to be involved in it. The rope was hidden. This hiding capacity we call tamas. The snake was projected. We call this rajas, projection. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a world. But we have to apply wisdom, and the capacity to reveal this is called sattva. Therefore, we have to, in our practical life, to sort all this out, we have to cultivate this quality of sattva. What does sattva mean? Sattva, like many Sanskrit words, has so many intricate layers of meanings, but we can interpret it as all the noble qualities that we can think of. That is why we had said, Ano Badraha Krato Yantu Vishwataha. May noble thoughts come to us from all sides. So we have to always be in tune with that prayer. Standing here, let us fill up. Empty vessel is here. If I don't attend to it and fill something deliberately, then other things will fill it. If I leave a house vacant and go on a month's holiday, I come back, don't be surprised if other creatures occupy it. Spiders and cockroaches and what have you will occupy it. Something that is empty and left to its own devices will be occupied by something else. So I have to constantly do a cleaning exercise. Not just leave it for a year. No, I have to maintain it nicely. I have to maintain the body with food, exercise, and so on. In that same way, I have to exercise the mind in a proper way and fill it with the higher values and notice when the other creatures are coming in, then I have to observe it and deal with it. In the summer, in this room, we have a whole procession of creatures coming in, or used to be anyway. We may have solved the problem, but they're coming in, a whole army marching in nice order. These are called ants. And they have detectors which say, okay, my comrade left a trail, I'll follow this trail. If you disrupt the trail, the ants run all over the place. Where's our trail? Where's our trail? And then you see, you're noticing it, you deal with it at the source. Now, you don't deal with the ants themselves crawling. As soon as you destroy that, more will come. You have to go to the very source. And what is the source? The mistake that the body and mind is conscious. That's the mistake. And put a stamp on it called I. So at the source, we have to say, no, this is the divine that never changes. It's unborn. Its consciousness is unflickering. And it comes out in our relationship as what we call God. Any God? No. That form which is dearest to us. And no difference between the form and the formless. It's two aspects of the same thing. The easiest way, therefore, is this bhakti yoga and doing all our activities with a sense of devotion and love, the path of love. So in any circumstance, we can change the formula a little bit. We can attack it aggressively. We can run away from it aggressively. We can yield in confusion, or we can apply love. And why would we apply love? What's the reason for it? Is it artificial? What is love? Love is a profound thing with this criteria, well announced many times: no fear, no rival, no reward. Completely unselfish, completely devoid of selfishness. That is why Swami Vivekananda will tell us, if you are absolutely truthful, sincerely truthful, and completely selfless, even if you don't believe in God, even if you're an atheist, you'll get the same revelation, the same height of understanding as those who sincerely believe in God and go on the path of worship. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is written in an era where the ancient sages followed the path of jnana, otherwise called sannyasa, involving sannyasa, that kind of renunciation which is there, going directly to the goal in a very, very heroic way. But for the general people, the easiest way, and therefore probably the best way for most, will be mobilizing the emotions, love of God. And when we love of God, it's an easier way than saying, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. We can then say, okay, we understand the broad principle of it. Keep it in reserve as a useful tool. It's a multi-purpose problem solver. But for ordinary life, we can take this ego and make it ripe. This is Ramakrishna's language. What is the ripe ego? It means that I take on my individual identity as a child, as a servant, as a devotee, and use that and love God and make that profound and rich. Totapuri taught Sri Ramakrishna Advaita. Totapuri taught Ramakrishna Advaita. Ramakrishna taught Totapuri the value of divinizing and making sure that the other side of the coin, the moving world, so-called, is a world of apparitional movement called Maya, and to understand this is the value of it as well. So if you have a coin and one side is the eternal, the unmoving, the unchanging, the other side is the moving, the changing, and that is called the play, Leela. Leela Maya, Leela Maya. In other words, we take all this drama and engage in it as Irving would do playing the part of Hamlet. Yes, let me play the part. Let me have a joy about it. But always remembering, I'm not Hamlet. And when I go home, I won't be Hamlet. I'll be Irving. And tomorrow I'll play the other performance. Now, what happens if I'm not engaged in that role play, which we can call the waking state? Well, I can sit in the audience, be an enjoyer, a witness, and enjoy the play, other actors playing. At that point, we can call it dream. Then we can remove everybody from the stage. Everything is gone. Only the light is there. Empty stage. Scenery gone. No actors. Blank stage. We can call this dreamless sleep, deep sleep. But all the time, there's a constant witness, which is always consciousness. Now the next question. So, what happens when consciousness is seemingly withdrawn from a body-mind complex called a person? We call it death. What happens to consciousness? Nothing. Consciousness is unchanging. His consciousness is unflickering, unborn. You can't say where's it going to go. So the grace of the OTE, as you say, is eternally flowing. And you're catching it with your radio. Every car you tune in, a radio is there, tuned to that station. Then somehow your radio breaks down, or you turn the car off and the radio is gone. You can't ask what happened to the OTE broadcast. It's always there. No matter what happens to the instrument, the divine grace of the OTE is always flowing. You can catch it anywhere because it's in the electromagnetic wave system, and you can catch it given a will to do it and suitable instrumentation for it. You can catch it anywhere, tune anywhere. This constant tuning is called spiritual life. Constantly making sure that we fill up with a useful broadcast. Catch the divine broadcast continuously. No holiday for it. It's a constant observation. What's happening? What's happening? And when we find howling noises, we know it's gone out of tune. We tune it back. What is the devil and Satan and all that? Well, what is sin and all that, ignorance and so on? The wrong tuning. That's all. When the tuning goes off, you're going to expect the howling noises. Don't complain about it. Oh, terrible noise in my car. Can you sort it out? Well, what is it? It's like a fuzzy thing and it's very loud and very uncomfortable. Don't know what to do. Oh, tune it in. Do a little adjustment. And when we tune it in generally, in the yogic terminology of what should we do in terms of discipline, in terms of a process, well, that general tuning is called yama. The fine tuning is called niyama. And that leads us to an internal connection. And with that internal connection, we are tuned into this consciousness, our own divine self, and we can do it through love of God. That's a sweet way. It's a non-demanding way. It's a way that doesn't require this rigorous discipline, simply because if I increase and deepen my love, then the love for other things disappears. I cannot love God and love the world separately. And when I love God in everything, and in meditation in me, see it in me, then I'll love that presence everywhere. I'll see it everywhere. So I hope I answered your question. Or increased your confusion. Either one or two. All right. So there's a stanza there in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that deals with some of these issues. And there's a useful thing. Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyapak. Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananbayat. You see, even if the most sinful person worships me, that means God, with unswerving devotion, that person must be regarded as good, for a person has rightly resolved. This is very encouraging. So the resolution has to be there. And resolution gives us a sense of determination. Sadur eva samantavyaha samyag vyasito hi saha. He must be regarded as good, for that person has resolved correctly. And soon, that person becomes a person of good character, righteousness, and so on, and obtains lasting peace. Know for certain that my devotee, says Krishna, can apply to Jesus, could apply to anyone, any form of God to which we are devoted. That devotee never perishes. Even a little effort, you don't wipe it out. It's kept there and increased with increased practice. So for those who take refuge, see the language, you see all the bhajans, all the hymns, whether it's in the Christian tradition or the Hindu tradition, whatever it is, this phrase, refuge. So those who take refuge in me, because where else can we go for refuge? If we're in distress or pain or suffering, we can't go to anybody, finally. We have to go to our most beloved source, the emperor of the entire universe, and take refuge there. Women, Vaishyas, Shudras, and even people of inferior birth still, they all attain the supreme goal. Somebody in dire straits, and there are so many we hear about in the world today, millions of them, then where will they take refuge? In a refugee camp? Primary thing is take refuge in this Lord of the universe, this most beloved. So what need to mention, if those people, if it's applied to everybody, if it can happen with everybody, then imagine what will happen to those who are brahmanas, devoted royal sages and so on, those who have a well-known spiritual practice and a well-known purity of mind. Having come into this transient, joyless world, worship me, that might seem a little pessimistic, but on analysis we find it is true. When babies come out of the womb, they don't come out laughing. There must be a reason. All right. Then worship me. Then it goes, and it's repeated in many different places. This manmana bhava mad bhakto, fix your mind on me, devoted to me, sacrifice to me, bow down to me, having thus made yourself steadfast in me, with me as the supreme goal, you will come to me. It can't be more plain than that. You can't make a different interpretation of it. It's there. Now, how easy it is to fix the mind on anything. If you take stock of where your thought goes at any given moment, and you'll find it's a bit like fireworks. It's here, it's there, it's the other place, and so on and so forth. It's all right. You stand there because you're the witness. And enjoy the fireworks for a few moments, and then introduce something that is of your own, namely fixity on the object of your worship, with your heart and with your attention. Equivalent to tuning into the eternal wavelength. And when you see that it is going out, you notice it, not much you can do about it, tune it back until it becomes steady. And somebody who is steady like that, is that the end of it? No, they will spontaneously work for the welfare of all beings. You can see it carefully in the 5th chapter, it's there, of the Bhagavad Gita. That it's not the end of it. It's no, such a person will work for the benefit of all beings, not just human beings, by the way, all beings. All right, so I think we can leave it there. And I hope we answered the question with regarding to consciousness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Good.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.